This episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast is brought to you by On Point Pomade. Keep your beard and hair looking on point with their line of pomades and beard oils over at onpointpomade.com. Use our code BSP15 at checkout and get 15% off your total purchase order. So thanks again to On Point Pomade for sponsoring our show. This episode is also sponsored by the Bean Bastard Coffee. Head over to thebeanbastard.com and pick up any one of their delicious hand-roasted coffees. Coffee lovers will also enjoy their hand-cut and handmade espresso candles and soaps as well. If you're in the Buffalo, New York area, head to their store located at 448 Elmwood Avenue. And thanks again to the Bean Bastard for supporting this show. BREWtally Speaking Podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. With over 500,000 officially licensed items in their online store, you're guaranteed to find something you need. Use our code BREW and get 10% off your total order. Now on to the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is Aaron Thompson, a.k.a. Small Hands, a.k.a. Empty Streets. If you are not familiar with who he is, well, we had his wife on a couple of weeks ago, Joanna Angel. This is basically the other part of the conversation we had with Joanna a few weeks ago. Aaron, basically someone I wanted to have on just because he's a very interesting performer in the adult entertainment industry, as well as just, as you're going to hear, a very fascinating person who has lived many, many different lives. But once I kind of was talking with Joanna about how the Dooms whiskey company that him and Joanna had started came to be, and then found out essentially that Aaron kind of used to be a former craft cocktail bartender and was really big in that scene for a while. And so once I kind of knew that, I was like, well, I mean, there's probably plenty of stories in starting your own whiskey company that, she wasn't able to really provide. And I did find it funny when I was talking to Joanna, when I was like, how did you come up with this unique flavor for a rye whiskey especially? And she was like, oh, that was all Aaron. So it was kind of funny when I was talking to Aaron and going, how did you find getting into this business? Because, your wife basically said it's more shisty than, the music business or even the porn industry. He was like, oh, I didn't fucking do any of that. So I think that is the very interesting thing. If you pay attention to the two of them, they have a very interesting working dynamic. They do a lot of things together. They're very supportive of one another, as husband and wife should be. And they just, kind of take things on together and conquer a lot of different facets of things. They just are very passionate about what they are passionate about. So that's very inspiring, and definitely why I wanted to have both of them on. It would be kind of cool to talk to them a little bit more kind of about working together. Many years ago, I've had a couple of different husband and wives on the show, and I always find it's interesting when you work with your spouse, so hand in hand, how that is. How are you able to kind of traverse those things? But maybe that'll be something we end up doing down the road if Aaron and Joanna are interested in talking about that and sharing that part of their lives. But the main reason Aaron actually came on was to talk about the Age of Regret EP, which is coming out this summer via Cleopatra Records. How it kind of came to be, working with a label, and just kind of being involved in that. I know Aaron is very kind of a DIY kind of person. You kind of came up in the touring scene of small punk rock bands and rock bands and so forth. So it was one of those things where it's like, when you're kind of just doing this thing because it's what you want to do, and then someone goes, hey, we'd like to put that out for you. It's like, okay, like what does that look like now? Like what are were there some concessions that you were like, I'm a little trepidatious about signing with a label, but really interesting conversation. I'm very much looking forward to getting this one out to you guys, as well as, just continuing to see what Aaron does moving forward. As if you follow him on Instagram, which we'll do all the plugs in a couple minutes, you will, find that he already is, tracking vocals, as you will hear in this interview as well, for new music that basically he's constantly writing. So I'm definitely looking forward to everyone getting to hear this EP. I think it's going to surprise some people with what's on there, and I'm really interested to kind of see what happens moving forward with Empty Streets. Without further ado, this is my conversation with Aaron Thompson, and we will talk to you real quickly on the other side of it. Normal introduction. Have the pleasure of talking to Aaron, aka Small Hands, aka Empty Streets, whose EP Age of Regrets is coming out. I don't know if there's officially a release date. It just says the summer as of now via Cleopatra Records.
Bill, basically, I was going to put it out on my birthday, which is June 25th. But that was before I got a record deal. So now there's people involved, and now we're figuring out some things. But it'll still come out this summer, and I'm still thinking about the same time. I just don't have the exact date yet.
I guess that's a fun thing. Like, obviously you created this project for just fun, something to do, and now you have a team and people that are kind of maybe not necessarily telling you what you can and can't do, but maybe looking at it going, well, it'd be better if you were to release this in this quarter of the year because, trying to get numbers and streaming and so forth and getting a good proper rollout for this. How has that kind of been changing the rollout for this and just kind of what this is becoming?
It really hasn't changed almost anything. I'm still in total creative control. Since this is like a solo act, I write everything, I play all the instruments, I do the graphics myself, I do the photo, I do it all. So it's still totally me. I just now have some help and some resources, which is awesome. I put out a record myself last summer. This will be the second. This will be the follow-up. And I've been making, even before Porn, I was in bands touring the whole world for years. So it's not like I did this just for fun. I always had the plan to there was always a master plan for this. I just didn't think in 2021 a label was something I cared about because you don't really, quote, need one anymore, but they are the right kind of people after talking to them, and their label's iconic. I mean, just to be on that roster with so many legends is that's enough for me,
Yeah, I know, like someone I'm trying to work on getting on that I think you're actually label mates with, is Eden Boy, which is very much like a him offshoot, basically. Like,
cool.
Filling.
I've never even heard. What does he go by?
He goes by Eden Boy, and I forget what the band name is, but basically they're using it's very much like Deep Shadows, Razorblade Romance era kind of him.
Okay, that's the best him. That's the best era. I think.
I mean, I'm actually getting ready to do. That's like one of my favorite bands of all time. And to another podcast I do with my co-host, we talk about discographies, and that's going to be something that we're talking about pretty soon. And he went from, because the Linkin Park record is the one we're doing before, and then we're doing him. So on the same night, we're doing those two. And he goes, in comparison, him's first record sounds like Slayer after that last Linkin Park record. And I was like, you're not really going to get this version of him until around Venus Doom. Again, when they start doing that 6, 7, 8 minute long kind of sludgy shit.
That's where they lost me. I kind of like what was it? Deep Shadows
and Brilliant Highlights. Yep.
That era in the pink. And I remember because, man, when I was in high school, it was all about him, because we were kids who grew up watching CKY and the Jackass VHS tapes before, not to date myself, but, and I actually have still to this day import CD that says Her on it because there was another band called him, so I have this weird CD that just says Her.
Funny quick story tangent about that. I live here in Michigan, and so we're right near Chicago, and there was this band called Him that I thought was going to be that band because I had heard Him was actually touring the States. And I started calling this club because I couldn't find anything out about it. There was no heartogram stuff. And I was like, this is really weird. And I found out that basically the band that was causing that legal dispute over the name was this band. They're like a jazz fusion band from Chicago. and they wouldn't change the name for the longest time. So then obviously him changed their name to Hurt. And I equally have I have a promo. I think I sold that thing for like $300 a while back. But then I was able to get a sealed copy of Razor Blade Romance under the Her moniker that I still have. So I was like, it's a fair trade.
Yeah.
But
nice little bits of random nostalgia.
It's I feel like as I get older, and maybe you're the same, I just buy my youth. Like, as you sort of can see over here, like I just bought these 3 Aaliyah skate decks in the last couple of months, being a huge Aaliyah fan, and people are like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, because I was really into her as a kid, and there just wasn't anything of hers back then. And same with like the hymn stuff. Like, it's just fun to collect weird stuff now.
For sure.
With Empty Streets, and you kind of saying that you've always been touring and always being into bands, I shouldn't say I was surprised by the sound of the EP, but it does make me wonder, knowing that you're kind of more into like punk rock and roll and stuff like that, and this isn't necessarily that it makes me wonder if we'll see more of that coming out under the Empty Streets moniker, or is this going to be a thing that's kind of maybe ever evolving as you're kind of putting stuff out?
Right. So basically, first of all, like I look like a punk rock guy, but looks can be deceiving. I've always listened to so much music, like every genre, everything under the sun. I was born in San Diego, right on the Tijuana border, and my dad was a Christian pastor. Mm-hmm. So the music of my youth is gangster rap from the neighborhood, mariachi, and gospel. And I never even heard a punk band until I moved into a more white part of town when I was like 11, and then started seeing kids with Green Day and Nirvana shirts and shit. So although I'm a quote, a punk rock guy at heart, and that's probably what I identify with the most. It's the scene that kind of gave me my whole identity, for lack of a better word. I've always listened to other genres, and specifically like for Empty Streets, it's more like electronic and a little darker based. So stuff like Depeche Mode, VNV Nation, of course, like Nine Inch Nails, even like some dance music like Robin and stuff like that. I've listened to that since high school. I just don't really, you can't tell by looking at me.
It's funny you say that. We were just in San Antonio this past week, and we stopped in at a gay bar on our like travels around, and they had an internet jukebox, so we threw on some stuff. And it was funny because, being a heavily tattooed person myself, I think I threw on some Robin, some Beyonce, and some other stuff that I just wanted to hear. And it's like, 1 p.m., but in the club, it looks like a club at fucking 1 o'clock. And I just remember, like, we walk in, so we like play the music, and this dude across the bar is like, "Did you guys play this?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Buy them shots. We're buying shots." Nice. Hey, and I was just like,
the power of the dance beat, baby.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, it's funny that it's like Robin, kind of even again, talking about nostalgia, Robin, when she came out in the early 90s, when I think presumably we're roughly around the same age, like I'm in 30s, I'll be 37 in a couple months. So I think
I got you beat 38.
Okay. So we're in the same time frame, but it's like when Robin came out with Show Me Love and stuff like that, it's like that was the Robin that I thought and was just kind of a throwaway pop star. And then you see her, come out, not that she really went away, but mainstream wise, went back overseas to Europe and kind of built her name up in the kind of underground club scene, and then comes out with the fucking smash Dancing on My Own. And like, Jesus Christ, what a fucking banger.
Yeah, absolutely.
So great. So, I mean, I definitely hear things like that. I mean, even Dance With You, actually, kind of speaking, almost paralleling song titles, was one of the first tracks I like immediately was drawn to when listening to this record, because it just, at the moment when it comes into the record, there's not really a song like that. It kind of
probably
feels
the brightest quote. My songs are all very dark. Both in lyric content and sort of sound. But I do like, if you can't tell, I have a love of pop music. So melodies and hooks and harmonies, I just like to make them sad. So even though Dance With You has an upbeat tone to it, it's still a very depressing song if you actually listen to the words.
Well, I was going to say, like, it's funny you chose kind of more lighter and fluffier. To me, I almost was like, it sounds more... And I hate this word when describing music, but it almost sounded a bit more mature and adventurous, because it's like, I wasn't,
cool. I'll take that.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it's one of those things where, because it's kind of the outlier thematically a little bit, if it's something that you were maybe a little trepidatious in putting in with the collection of songs you had for this.
No, it's the opposite. No? I love pop songs. So anytime in my writing process where I kind of find a quote, a pop song that kind of I can think will fit for Empty Streets, oh, I'm stoked. I'm all about it. All about it. And also, I'm a 38-year-old guy I've been on tour around the world. I've done thousands of porn scenes. Like, what do I got to prove? I don't have to be cool. I don't have to be, I don't have to pretend like I'm super goth. I just am doing me. And this is the sound that is produced when I'm left alone to my own devices to do me.
I guess that's something I've not really thought of. The thought literally just came into my head as you said that. I know making music, especially when you're writing and making all of it yourself, can kind of be a very self-isolating experience.
Extremely.
Given the fact that, and maybe not with COVID and all that kind of stuff happening in the last year or so, but have you found that you've kind of been able to quote unquote live demo these songs out maybe on sets and just kind of get a vibe of how people are feeling a certain part maybe you're looking to kind of see, or just kind of sharing your music in a different sense that way to kind of create a mood?
I don't really share stuff I'm working on too much, because not to sound like a dick, but I don't really care what people think. I'm going to make the songs I want to make, and I'm happy that a certain amount of people like them and respond to them. But if no one did, I would still make those songs. So I don't really do that sort of a thing. But I definitely, I see and hear feedback once stuff comes out, and I take notes. I'm not an idiot. I listen I listen to everything people say, but at the end of the day, I make music first for me. It's a selfish thing. I do it as basically a form of therapy, to get my demons out. Otherwise I'd be a much more dark, depressed person, walking around. And the reason why I'm very fortunate to not be like that is because I put all that darkness into this place, and I make it live in the song, and then I can let go of it,
Yeah, it's just interesting sometimes when talking to a lot of different musicians, people have kind of said, like, as they're working on something, they're like, you get so insular on a part and you're kind of questioning, like, does this part fit? Does it not? And you're kind of going back and forth. And sometimes, like, I know bands will, when they're touring, especially, will just kind of play out a song. It's not done. Right. And then it's like, so you'll hear, basically demo versions of vocals and so forth, or a whole section taken out. And it's just kind of interesting to be, because they might go, well, we played this song live. And then I noticed, like, no one really, like, that bridge section didn't hit the way I thought it was, but people seem to really like that chorus or the pre-chorus. So we kind of moved some stuff around to just build the song to make it be better than what it was. So I just didn't know if maybe that was something that you kind of did as well for your creative process.
I kind of act like I play both roles. So like usually in my process, if I write something, I think it's good, I'll sleep on it. The next day I'll listen to it, but I'll listen to it wanting to hate it on purpose. Like, what the fuck, like what? Come on, man. Like you, I know you thought this was great last night when you're smoking all that weed, but let's listen now. And then if it's awful, I'll be hard on myself. And I'm like, no, fuck no, we're throwing that away, or we need to change it. Or if it passed the sleep test and I'm like, oh, okay, that's still good. Then I know I got something.
You had kind of mentioned a little bit ago, kind of growing up listening to a lot of like, gangster rap and stuff like that. And all that kind of stuff. I noticed in some of the songs, there's more of a natural cadence of a kind of a flow. Is that maybe a side of yourself that you would like, do you make hip hop beats on your own? Like, is that a side we'll see coming soonish at some point?
I mean, I've been making rap beats for years, just for fun and for my friends. And I do a lot of film score work in adult films. So a lot of my ideas that are just instrumental are in a lot of these movies, just kind of playing in the background or whatever. And so I think maybe subconsciously in the way I deliver singing and vocals, I'm sure there's some influence from just a lifetime of listening to vocalists who are more about the rhythm than necessarily the notes, if you will. And I think that's a cool concept to the voice is an instrument. It's a tool, and it can be used in a billion different ways. And if you can sort of cherry pick all these little cool things from different singers, rappers, just public speakers, hell, I mean, actors, there's the timbre and there's tone in voices. And I've always been obsessed with all the little intricacies of that. And I try to make the voice an interesting instrument, just like any other instrument.
I just thought it's interesting to me, kind of being the same, like being really big into hip hop and like R&B and so forth. And I always tend to find that those in the the rock metal, whatever the outer fringes of basically rapper R&B, that when you're able to, you kind of can notice it when you listen to someone who's kind of influenced by it, even if they're not trying, because instead of, I feel like rock musicians or rock vocalists are kind of very like,
well, that's really funny that you, all right. So I'm going to let you in. No one knows this. This is you're the first person I've told this to. So I have like a little secret formula for my Empty Streets songs. And one thing that is specific is no rock beats or try to avoid them, as much as you can. And, what happened? Are you still there? Hold on.
Yep. You're good. You just keep cutting it out.
Sorry. Is it better now? I had a call try to interrupt.
No, you're good.
So basically when I make the drum parts for Empty Street songs, I either base them off hip hop, pop songs, or like industrial, like goth industrial club beats. And I try to stay away from your standard like rock and roll or punk.
4 on the floor kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying there's none of that in there, but most of that's like a very specific conscious thing that I always do on purpose. And like one of the other things is no happy songs.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting because it's like I was watching, I don't know if you've seen it, I think it's on Netflix right now. It's like this bio of Biggie kind of talking to his mom, his like family and stuff like that, and kind of getting to know more of him as a person versus like, oh, it's just, there's Biggie and he does what he does. And it was really interesting in the story because like, they talking through him, like through old videos, because one of the dudes in Junior Mafia, I think, was filming everything. And so he's talking about how like he grew up on, like sort of like you're saying, like gospel, and grew up on, jazz, and grew up on like all this other stuff. And he's pulling out different influences. So when he's kind of going over some of these older samples and so forth that are being used, he kind of has more of a understanding of like how it needs to sound, because he pull from that. And when listening to this, it's like I definitely hear some of the more obvious influences, like I kind of figured maybe like a him or a David from Depeche Mode and stuff like that. But then it's like I said, I hear some like hip hop cadences. I can't like pin it down to anything, but it's like it's just little nuances that I'm like, all right, like that's not something. If you don't listen to that kind of music, you probably aren't aware that you're kind of like not just riding the beat right on, like you're kind of riding a little behind or a little forward, and it kind of just those things add really interesting textures and nuance to songs that as a listener keeps me coming back.
Cool. Well, hey, that's really cool. I appreciate that you even picked up on that. You're the first one who has.
Well, it was kind of funny because your Instagram story last night had so much hip hop. Like even my wife, like I think it was I forget the song.
Pusha T.
Yeah, it was Pusha T, but I think you had that one Fat Joe song, and I can't remember what the fuck it is.
Oh, now. All the way up.
Yeah, all the way up. Yeah. And as soon as it like came on, like my wife was just like kind of going. I was like, yeah, all the way up. That's right, Fat Joe.
Yo, you can't deny the power of a good beat, man.
Oh no, I mean that's why DMX, when he had Swiss Beats doing all his shit, like that's why he was just unstoppable back in the late '90s, early 2000s.
X gonna give it to you,
dude. I've seen him twice now in the last like 5 years, and dude's still incredible.
Hell yeah.
What so kind of changing up a little bit of just kind of talking more about things in general. So obviously you and Joanna have Doom's whiskey. Now, unbeknownst to me at the time when talking to her, she had kind of informed me that you come from kind of that craft cocktail bartender world. How were you in it before it really kind of has hit this boom that it's really seen in the last, I'll say 5-6 years or so?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, so I've lived a lot of lives, if you haven't figured it out by now. And I've had about 5 different careers, and they've all been really cool and weird. And basically, back in, I don't know, when did that recession hit? Back in 2005 or 6 or whatever?
Yeah.
Basically, at the time, I was playing in punk bands, not making any money. I had a job striping cars at a graphics shop. I was out in the parking lot putting logos on cars and stuff. And then the recession hit, and I didn't have a fucking job, and my band wasn't making any money. And so I picked up a gig just washing glasses at a bar to, just to pay my rent. And I ended up just really getting into it and liking the culture and the work. And within a year, I was like promoted to head bartender at this bar. And then I started really getting serious, and I was studying to be a sommelier. I I've been to Jalisco and tequila in Mexico. I've been to the tequila distilleries. I've been to beer factories in Germany. I've been all over wineries, and I was really studying how literally like the craft and the history of alcohol and spirits. And it's really fucking fascinating because it's such a part of human civilization. All societies, all cultures since the beginning of time have had their form of like something fermented or a drink. And the whole thing of it is fascinating to me. So for about 8 years, I worked in these craft cocktail bars and also at like big, crazy, loud nightclubs because I wanted to get the balance of doing both. And that's where I gained all my knowledge of the alcohol and spirits world, which led us to making our own whiskey.
So I still haven't gotten the Dooms whiskey yet. It is on my short list of other things to get. I finally got my Deftones tequilas that just came out, so nice. I'll crack open one of those eventually. But it was interesting because Joanna kind of made a comment that she was a little bit surprised at how, I'm trying to remember her exact verbiage, but I'll just say nefarious the alcohol industry is. She said it was probably one of the worst ones she's ever been a part of.
It's worse than music and porn.
Did that surprise you, or did your thirst for knowledge going throughout and learning all about it from just the essence of actually making things to then kind of maybe more of the business side of having to get shelf space and getting into bars and so forth? Did that part of it surprise you when starting Dooms, or were you kind of like, nah, I knew this is going to be this way?
I gotta give my wife a lot of credit here because I never had to learn any business. So it was all her. Basically, I created Dooms. I made the packaging. I did the artwork. I designed the logos. I did the recipe with my master distiller. I'm on that end. Business end, I don't know shit. Okay. It's all my wife. So for me, it's been a very easy ride. But I think she's had to learn a lot along the way. But because she's the Joanna Angel and she's a genius, she's managed to just handle it, so props to her.
It just was one of those, like, I always find, because I'm sort of like you, I have a morbid curiosity for a lot of things, and that's obviously why I probably do this and just talk to essentially strangers and sometimes bear things about me that I probably shouldn't. Same. But it was one of those things where I think, everyone has a coffee. Everyone's trying to do beer. It's kind of the thing. And I was very pleasantly surprised to find that, when she was like, "Oh, I deferred all of that to you because you come from that world." And I was just like, "Oh, like this is cool." Because like I said, living here in Michigan and Grand Rapids specifically, we have founders. We have basically every big brewery in Michigan is now in Grand Rapids, other than Bell's, which is only an hour away in Kalamazoo. But to see the rest of the beer world, like we just won Beer City again for the third year in a row. And I think we've only lost the thing once since the award's been going around. But it's one of those that in my travels for beer anyway, I go places and I don't feel like anyone's as adventurous really as we are here. San Antonio has been kind of interesting. But everyone just makes their stout, their porter, they make their base. And even going out to like Washington, I feel like they had a great craft cocktail scene. We went to a couple of tapas places. We went to a craft cocktail bar, and everyone just really wowed me with their knowledge of the individual ingredients that went into something, knowing when something is in season and fresh, and really elevating your drink with, food or whatever. And it's one of those, and I think those that are able to do it well are just on another fucking level that most people aren't going to think of. So the fact that you've spent so much time in that industry and really wanted to learn, I think probably made you be pretty adventurous with this, because I mean, I'm trying to remember, it was, it's not Madagascar vanilla beans. Is it? It's there's something in in your whiskey that I was like, that's an interesting flavor profile that you're going for a whiskey.
Well, we wanted, you got to stand out, in a sea of whiskeys. And when you're the little guy, my main thing was it had to be 100 proof, because for just like branding purposes, and it also, it's a lot less crowded arena in the 100 proof arena. And it also had to be a rye because there's too many bourbons right now. And then it has to taste not like 100 proof was my thing. Cause I like good fiery, like Four Roses single barrel, like, you know, the good 100 proof whiskeys that just bring the heat. But I'm aware that not everyone does. So I was like, can I possibly truly make a good 100 proof that is also palatable to maybe people who aren't really that hardcore? And I'd like to think I did that.
How long did it take to get the recipe right?
Dude, the whole process took probably 5 years.
Okay.
And I mean, like, from just when we said, hey, we should start an alcohol, then I had to come up with a name and a vision and a basic flavor profile. Then I had to meet with freaking tons of master distillers at all these, you know, small distilleries, even up to Canada. I met a couple, and all over the States. And then when I met the guy, that we clicked with, then we had to get working and get going on the product. And, you know, and it's not, when you're conceptualizing something new, there's not something to reference. So I gave, you know, we would go back and forth with notes and flavor profiles and, you know, different mash bills and woods and this and that. And finally, when we got what the sample unaged that I liked, then we had to age it for 26 months. And while that 2 years was happening, I was designing the bottle, designing the packaging. Joanna was doing all this Lego shit that definitely ate up 2 years. So it's such a huge it's the most like ambitious thing I think we've ever attempted. And I think a lot of the reason why people don't go into alcohol, like you said, like they do maybe coffee or this or that, is because not only is it's expensive to start up, and you have to be patient. We had to wait fucking 6 years to have this shit in our hands. And that's insane. Like, you have to really believe in what you're doing, or just be crazy, or a little of both to do that, because you don't get any, you don't get a return on your investment for, you know, we still haven't made any money on the whiskey. But you know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things where we just felt like we can do this, and why can't we? You know what? Because it's a little scary, because it's a little intimidating. So what? Like, I'm not scared. Let's go. The worst thing that can happen is we fail. Who cares? And if so, we tried.
I think the thing, if it wasn't during a pandemic, that I was kind of looking forward to is seeing, and I mean, I guess you can still do it digitally. I don't know the legalities of some of that stuff, as far as if you can even make cocktails with people who might be underage watching. I haven't even thought about that. I don't know. I mean, because of my day job, I try to steer clear of all right. Not family friendly kind of shit. Even if it's just whiskey, I kind of try to keep everything for the over 18 crowd. Well, it's funny because, like, when having Willie from Lamb of God on, because they did a non-alcoholic beer, and
that's cool.
Yeah, the non-alcoholic space is getting really crazy right now. Like, I know a friend of mine is getting ready to open his bar, and he's recovering alcoholic, so he is bringing in, I guess they make non-alcoholic spirits even. So you can
they do.
Have,
yeah, I've seen it pop up at some of the fancy, like, grocery stores and stuff.
Yeah, so I'm interested to kind of see what he's bringing to that space, and just kind of, you know, another avenue for people who want to enjoy cocktails, but, you know, cocktails basically. But was a thing where when talking with Willie, because even a lot of people I don't think understand that even though it may have an NA, there is, unless it's 100% NA, there's still that 0.0000 whatever the fuck in the beer. So I had even made the comment to Willie, I was like, I'm surprised you guys are just able to ship this. Given that,
yeah, but there's same amount or more alcohol in, like, kombucha and shit, and that's in every grocery store.
That's true.
So it's the same logic. I'm gonna guess. I don't know exactly the legalities, but that's probably they probably fall into the same category or whatever.
I don't know, because, like, I know when I worked at Deja Vu, like, forever ago, we weren't allowed to sell old O'Douls to the 18-year-olds. You had to be 21, and I was like, but it's non-alcoholic, and they're like, but it has the point, and that was their rationale, and I was like, well,
what the hell is an 18-year-old doing drinking O'Douls anyway? Go drink beer like a real kid.
I mean, I remember playing some shows.
Go drink natural ice like the rest of us did.
Mine was Busch Light for a while.
We were Natty Ice and Molson, the Canadian beer, because it was, for some reason, in San Diego at the gas station by our shitty punk apartment, Molson and Natty Ice were the cheapest beer you could buy.
Molson, I know at our house, because just like I think everybody at a certain age, like, it was like 4 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yep.
But it was Rolling Rock and Molson, and Rolling Rock is the fucking worst. God, it's so gross. But it was just, it's interesting because like I remember playing shows and like we would play, churches and stuff like that, and you'd see all these like straight edge kids who are 13, and I guess nothing against being straight edge, but at 13, I mean, you kind of don't have a choice. You can drink if you can get your hands on it, but in my head I'm like, you don't really have a choice. You have to be straight edge.
13, you're just trying to find yourself. So,
yeah. But I remember someone coming up to me while I was drinking in my van, and they were just like, "Are you drinking?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because it's fucking $8 for a beer in there." And I was like, "Out here, I have a 30 pack, and it costs me money, but like I can just drink out here."
The days of the punk rock van tours.
I don't miss those. My body doesn't miss those.
I miss them a lot. I love those years, man. I had so much fun.
I remember one of the last tours I did, I booked it for a couple of bands, and I went with the headliner. And I remember being like, "Oh, this is really cool." But then I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I'm getting paid still. Like my job is paying me to take this week off, 2 week and a half off work to go travel and go see shows and kind of like live the life for, a week and a half. But I was like, cool, these guys are getting by with what little bit I got, the guarantee they asked for. And, that like we're going and playing places, and it's like, yeah, there's no one here. Here's your like shitty frozen pizza and, your $75.
Or man, I mean, if that, fuck, I remember there were shows where we got, I think the most like demoralizing one was we once drove like from San Diego to Reno, like what is that, like 11 hours or something. And we were playing at some biker bar. And not only did they hate us, we also thought we were going to get the shit beat out of us. And then when it came time to get paid, the manager handed me an empty beer pitcher and was like, "You can walk around and ask if anyone wants to throw tips in there." And I'm like, "Yeah, right, dude." So we, I do miss those days though, because they're just those are the days when you're young and like the world is just wide open and you're flying by the seat of your pants, and there's no net, it's like, yo, we're living like outlaws. We're in the van with my best friends. We're just gonna hit the road and see what the fuck happens.
Yeah. Kind of one of the last things I'll touch on to let you go, because I don't know how much longer you have to do anything, but I kind of been listening to some of your other podcasts over the years and so forth. I really appreciate the fact that you also have gotten into smoking weed in your 30s as opposed to as a kid, because I recently, in the last like probably 2 years, have gotten into it just so I could fucking sleep. And it was one of those things where like I felt like an asshole. Like when people were like, "Oh, you smoke weed?" I'm like, "Yeah, to go to bed." Like I smoke like an hour before I go to bed and then sleep all night. I don't have to get up and pee or whatever. Like, but it's like, it seems like that's not the normal thing. Like everyone's like, "Oh, I started smoking weed when I was like 15." So
I mean, everyone has their youth. I think because I grew up in church and my dad was a preacher, there wasn't access much for me to anything. Like, we didn't have cable TV. We didn't have the internet. We were also really poor, so we didn't really have much of anything. But I was pretty like closed off to all that stuff. So even if I freaking wanted to when I was young, I didn't even know where to go or how to get it. I didn't even get drunk till I was 21. I was, and not because I was like, thought I was better than anyone else or so good. I just literally like, it just wasn't in my bubble, in my world. But mainly I started smoking weed because doing porn, doing my day job, you can't be a heavy drinker and do, be naked and in good shape and have good cardio. And, it doesn't work that way. It's actually basically I had to quit drinking completely for about a year when I started doing porn, just to get my body more back into shape and detail. Like this is a very physical job. You're basically an athlete, you just consider yourself that. And so when I quit drinking, I couldn't, like you're saying, I couldn't sleep at all. And I was just like, damn, like I can't sleep. I guess I'm a bigger alcoholic than I thought, and so then I started smoking weed to help with sleep. But man, I don't even say it like that. I just smoke weed because it makes every part of my life better. Like my mental state is better. My creative state is better. I don't get munchies. I don't get sleepy and tired, and I don't follow, like all that cheesy shit. So it's a very like normal part of my day for me. It's not even, and I don't feel like weird, like like defending it or explaining it to someone. You know, yeah, I smoke weed all day, just like I drink water all day. You know.
Same. Got my growler full of water. It's kind of interesting because I feel like the stigma is kind of changing around it. I mean, shit, I was just listening to Kevin Smith talk to Ice Cube yesterday, because apparently now Ice Cube's got his own two strains of weed.
Makes sense.
Yeah, although I was kind of like, it would make sense, but I was like, I also don't really think of Ice as a smoker. Like, I don't see him act.
Cube's a huge smoker. He's been since day one. I've read interviews on about him on movie sets, and he's just chain smoking joints like left and right.
I think it's just because I always imagine him as Craig, like basically where he like didn't smoke. So I'm just like, yeah, that's
right,
how he is.
Yeah.
So, is that something, maybe a space that you would like to get into eventually as well? Creating your own strain?
I've been approached by some brands. The only thing for me is because I don't like, how do I say it? I don't wear like shirts with weed logos on them. I don't fucking have High Times posters on my wall. I don't worship weed like some people do. It's just part of my routine. It's just part of my day. So I'm not probably going to have like a strain or this or that. If anything, actually what I have been talking about is doing a tattoo healing cream with CBD in it.
Yeah.
And THC. So I might go in something like that if anything. But you know, I got enough on my plate. I don't need to start digging up holes in my backyard and growing weed.
Is that actually something that you found has worked? I know there's a lot of like salves and stuff like that coming out for like tattoo care and stuff. And it seems like the CBD stuff is sort of coming out. I know I got approached by a company to possibly sponsor the show, and I was like, I'm not really interested in your like mints and all that kind of shit, but like if you have a tattoo like cream and it works, like I would be about that, because like, you know, there's what I found works for me. And I always think that's the funny thing when people try telling you like, you know what you should do to take care of your tattoos, and it's like, fuck you, dude. Like I have enough and I know how my body reacts to shit. So like it's not a one size fits all kind of thing typically, like sort of like you're saying, you got to know your body. But
correct.
Have you really been exploring that space? Because like I am interested in finding it, but I feel like sometimes those products are kind of expensive for no more than you get, and then you don't want to be like, well, I got burned on that one.
Totally. Yeah. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, nothing's happening yet. But if conversations lead to something real, I'm not going to put my name on something that I don't personally think is legit. So I'm going to test some shit out first on myself before I, start talking about it. So.
And then I guess, lastly, where can, it's always kind of funny, where can everyone find you or whatever you would like to promote online?
Yeah, basically you can find me on Instagram at @thesmallhands_. Make sure it's @thesmallhands_, because there's a lot of imposters trying to get laid, trying to pretend to be me. There's a ton of fake accounts out there. So make sure you hit the verified one. That's me. And it's home base for everything, for the whiskey, for the music, for the film work, for everything. Just follow me on Instagram and you'll be good.
I do have a question for you. I don't know where this came and popped up from, but I think it's funny because I'm seeing a lot of, on Twitter today it was trending and I saw a lot of backlash. So OnlyFans obviously is a big thing that a lot of people are doing right now in the industry. And I forget who it is. There was somebody, maybe it's Cardi B, who had one and it was just like, I'm not going to get naked. And I don't know what she's posting, but I saw, and I'm probably going to get her name wrong. Bad Baby. Is that her name? Sure. The Cash Me Outside girl.
Sure. I know the song. I didn't.
Okay. So, okay. I was gonna say, I know she, I guess, is a rapper or whatever she does. But I guess she just turned 18 last week, started an OnlyFans, and I guess in one day made over $1 million like of it, or 6 hours. In 6 hours made $1 million off of it. And a lot of people are up in arms about it, but it's one of those where when you, I don't necessarily want to say when you see, because obviously you're not following it, but when I guess you hear of something like that happening, do you feel like it, I don't want to say lessens what you do, or do you feel like it either
What are people upset about? What are they up in arms about?
That she, I guess, has made $1 million in 6 hours for, I guess,
So they're just mad that she's making crazy money? Is there like a Are they mad because they think she did it in a sketchy way or something? Or
I don't know. Like, trying to read some of the comments, it's hard because like you see some people who are like, get that fucking money. Like, so why are you mad that someone made money? Secondly, like if it's about the fact that potentially she'll do topless photos or end up going down the porn route, which some, main quote unquote mainstream people, I don't know if she's mainstream, but I don't know if that's the thing where it's like, well, you were this, and because now you're maybe going to be dipping into this other realm, like now you're taking yourself out of the mainstream and going to something that people don't want to support or think is lesser than.
Sounds like they are supporting her. She made that much money.
And that's
like
what
it sounds like everyone is supporting her.
I know. And it's one of those things though, too, that I'm also seeing where people are like, are we forgetting like all the people who are thirsty as shit trying to go on her thing? Like that she legitimately was underage less than a week ago. And now you're like,
that to me is what stands out more than the money she made. And to me, that's more a reflection of us as a society, because she wouldn't have made that money if nobody had signed up. But guess what? In one day, a ton of fucking motherfuckers signed up for whatever they thought they were going to see, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that to me is more concerning. Like this girl is 18 years old. She's a young girl who's doing whatever she thinks in the moment is best for her career, for her financial, I don't know this person. But it's everyone who was like waiting with their credit card, I frown more on everyone who signed up for her shit than her. Leave the girl alone, let her live her life. And if you don't want to be a part of watching a freaking 18-year-old rapper show her boobs, don't pay for it, don't sign up for it. And if nobody does, guess what, that shit'll end quick. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the fastest way to if you feel a certain way about this kind of stuff, to shut it down, which is don't support it with your money or your subscriptions or whatever it is. And I'm not saying people should or should not support her, because I don't really know anything about this. It just seems to me like it's creepy. Like, like you just turned 18, you have every legal right to do this thing. And that I have my own, like, I'm not your dad, but I'm in porn, and I personally think the age should be 21 for like, I think 18 is a little too young. That being said, there's individuals I've met along the way who are fine for this job, and that being said, there are individuals of all ages that I've seen that are good for porn. Like, you've got the right head for it, and that are bad for it. So I don't know, man, about this OnlyFans stuff. The only thing that kind of makes me feel a little uneasy is so many people just jumped on this basically child's thing. And that's gross, man.
It's something where I feel like it's a classic problem with Americans, to me personally, where The Simpsons made a great, I think it was a Halloween horror episode where like the advertisements came to life, and then they're like, oh, you just don't look, and then it goes away. It kills them, because if you essentially, if you don't watch an ad, that product dies. So same thing, like it was just kind of weird timing for her though, because I did see some stuff coming around in the last like couple of weeks where, basically she was saying like, I'm not that meme, I'm not the cash me outside thing. Like, they edited things around to make me look like this bitch who didn't care. And then I'm like, but then you fed into it too. Like, you profited off of your 15 minutes of fame and extended it another 4 years. But then it's even, when I think about shit like that, like we're in this whole Free Britney thing. Like, I don't know if you've seen or gone down that rabbit hole at all. But it's like, you go down that and you just see like, you could say like, oh, she's kind of whoring herself out or whatever for this OnlyFans for money, but it's like, but she's essentially had that been happening to her since she was underage. So how is it any different than letting her take control of it and give the narrative that she wants now officially?
It's not that different. Again, I think the biggest issue isn't her. It's the people who funded that $1 million she made in 6 hours. That's just my opinion.
But I think the thing I was trying to hit on, just to kind of wrap up the point, in case I knew people were like, that point didn't make any sense, but it was just more, you're starting to see more, I guess, people that are largely known in the entertainment industry starting to kind of go do these things. And do you feel like it's actually giving credibility maybe to your industry, or is it kind of maybe lessening it a little bit?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. Obviously the more mainstream and more normalized, sex and sex work and sex entertainment gets, obviously that makes it just more normal, more acceptable, and more of a not a big deal. But at the same time, some of these celebrities, I think, don't realize maybe the arena they're stepping into, that's already been established, and kind of like when Bella Thorne started her OnlyFans. And I know Bella, she directed me in a movie last year. She's cool, super cool girl. And I saw the backlash she got when she started her OnlyFans. And so, I don't know, man. I don't even really I don't have an OnlyFans, so I don't even care. My wife has one that I'm a guest star in sometimes. Like everything, OnlyFans is a tool, just like Twitter, just like Instagram. And like any tools, if you're smart and clever and work hard, you can use them to better yourself, make money, do whatever it is. And like other tools, if you don't know what you're doing with them, you can hurt yourself. You can hurt people. Like you don't give a freaking inexperienced person a blowtorch, because but in the right hands, that blowtorch can do some magical shit. So I view all of this stuff just as tools to further whatever I want to do in life, or get me where I want to go. So I don't really give a shit about OnlyFans itself at all. It's just another tool.
You should, as a cheap plug, I know you have a million things that you do. In the few podcasts I've listened to that I found you on over the last couple years, your is very interesting. And a lot of the different things that you're interested in. I think, I feel like I could talk to you for another 2 hours, just kind of about your how you grew up, how it shaped you, and kind of those things. And I'm sure on some other podcasts I'll find maybe you have, but I feel like that's an avenue maybe that you should look into, is just kind of doing your own podcast and just kind of shooting the shit and kind of telling more of your stories.
Yeah. I love people. I love to chat. I like to hear about other people's, experiences and walks of life. If someone wants to approach me, I got too much going where I'm not going to start something myself. But if anybody listening out there runs a company or anything, wants to set up something, I'm always open to the meeting.
It's great talking to you, and enjoy the rest of your day. And I don't really know. I'm looking forward to everyone else getting to hear this EP, and I guess whatever else you have coming. Are you actually working on? Is there already plans for a follow up already?
I'm tracking the last song, the final vocals, this week for this Cleopatra release, and then that's in the can. And then probably in about 2 weeks I'll have another song written for whatever the next record is. I write. I never stop. I'm writing all the time. So.
Well, I mean, that's been the funny thing. Talking to Lee from Buenos Aires, he was like, I have a whole solo record, another solo record done. We have the Buenos Aires record that we were supposed to drop last year and tour on. We're already halfway through the next one. And just kind of the same thing. I was talking to this dude, Austin Mead, a couple of weeks ago, and he was literally in the studio when we were doing the thing. And I was like, what are you doing in the studio? He's like, I'm already writing the next record. And I was like, yeah, well, shit. And I was like, I mean, I know that a lot of people, I'm still sitting on an episode from about a year and a half ago. The band still hasn't put out the record that they were done with 5 months before that. So it's just one of those things where it's I know that in this industry that's the unfortunate thing. And when people do press, you can sometimes tell when someone's like, yeah, this was cool, and they don't sound as into it, because it's yeah, we had this done for a year and I've been listening to this for a year. Wait until I get to tell you about the shit I'm working on right now that you're not going to hear about for another year and a half. So we're always perpetually behind with a lot of these things. So it's always funny when talking, because we're talking about an EP that's not out technically, but I'm sure you're already writing more stuff that we may or may not hear, until next year. So
yeah, no, you'll hear this record soon enough. I don't like to sit on things for very long. I get very antsy and impatient. So I like to be prolific and turn shit around quick.
Well, fair enough. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah. So as my chat with Aaron Thompson, aka Small Hands of Empty Streets, again, their EP Age of Regret is out this summer via Cleopatra Records. Sounds like it's going to be dropping around his birthday, but if I've learned anything in the last year is you can never really know when something is officially going to drop until there is a street date. And then even then, that's not always like 100% guaranteed. So I want to thank Aaron for coming on. If you are interested in checking him out, it's very simple. Twitter and Instagram, as you heard, _the_smallhands_ at the very end. There are a lot of people impersonating him, as he has been making mention of on Twitter the last few days as of when I'm recording this. And just a lot of cool stuff coming out from Aaron at this point. As of when I'm recording this, you can go everywhere and hear the collaboration he did with Ophelia. I know how to say it when I look at it, but I'm just kind of like hesitant. I pronounce it Vehement. Vehement. If you go to his socials, you'll see the link for the video in his bio. So I want to thank Aaron again. Just a really fascinating dude, as I said in the intro, and as you heard, has lived a bunch of lives. I could talk to that dude for hours and hours. I think the story about how he grew up is really interesting. I have gone and since checked out some of the other podcasts he's been a part of and other interviews, and I definitely think there's some cool stories that he always has. I mean, anybody who's worked in the service industry, especially as a bartender, probably has just insane amount of great stories, especially, also being a musician who has toured all over the world, and I'm sure the adult entertainment industry. I have a lot of stories from my brief time working at a strip club, so I can only imagine what he's got basically at his disposal for just stories. Before we wrap this episode up, I do want to talk about a beer I'm drinking. I came home after going to San Antonio with my wife and hanging out with Mark from Nothing More. I was gifted some beers to take home. And if you follow him on Untapped, Mark that is, you'll see that he has been drinking these Martin House Brewing Company, these various sour lactose beers. And this one that he sent me home with was a fucking home run. My wife had some the other day and loved it as well. It's an orange cinnamon roll. It's a lactose sour with orange and cinnamon. It's basically exactly like it sounds, like an orange kind of cinnamon roll. The sour isn't so sour. It's kind of more on that like orange flavor, like the little tartness of the orange. And then the cinnamon, like sweet cinnamon roll flavor on the back end just is fucking phenomenal. Pretty much every single thing that I've had from Martin House Brewing has been, especially in this series, has been phenomenal. There was a green apple sour that I had that I posted on my Untapped. It tasted basically like a sour Jolly Rancher. It was fucking delicious. So I definitely would say if you are in the distribution area for Martin House Brewing and anything sounds remotely good to you, do yourself a favor and go pick up any of their beer if you are of legal drinking age. But this was a home run for me, and I'm especially glad that my wife liked it, and I'm glad that we still have basically a 6-pack left, or a 5-pack at this point left of it, because I will be enjoying the shit out of this. I guess Marcus turned me into a sour fan. I hate to give him credit because I've basically shit on all the sours he used to drink and been like, sours are just gross. I don't like them, but I think he's found the sweet spot for me for sours. So if you're into that, do that. Also, Doom's Whiskey. I was able to get my bottle finally after talking to Aaron. It arrived about a week ago. It is surprisingly good. It is a bit of a fiery whiskey, as he said. It's 100 proof. It's a rye whiskey. I'll have to post the video I took of me actually trying it. I'll post that on our socials as well as the can of beer with this episode. If you would like to follow us, very simple, brewspeakpod.com. Go there. That's the landing page for everything. You can find the video of this up on YouTube. You can listen to this however you do. Rate, review, subscribe. Everyone always talks about that. You know why it's important. And last but not least, our sponsors, thanks to rockabilia.com. Use our code BREW, get 10% off your total purchase order. On Point Pomade, use our code BSP15 and take 15% off your total purchase order. And last but not least is the Bean Bastard Coffee. Head on over to thebeanbastard.com and get you some delicious coffee. And for the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, I am John, and I will talk to you guys next week with Mark Holcomb of Periphery. And I'll hint, maybe there's another podcast on the horizon? Question marks? Stay tuned and find out.
Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Coach, what'd you think?
Fucking embarrassing!
Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay, I thought we were going to get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks. But you knew what you were getting into. it will result in less listens. You're going to see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're going to see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet. And I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you, don't use this fucking riff. It sucks.